Hey, there's Doug. Uh, I've been going through the process of upgrading my monitor recently. I know this isn't something we normally talk about on this channel. Normally, I talk about games and stuff, but the technology that we use is obviously going to be important to us getting enjoyment out of the games we play, and in my case, playing games and producing content for those games. So, since I've been doing this for the past few weeks pretty heavily, I thought I would take a few minutes to share with you, the conclusions that I've come to personally. Your mileage is going to vary. You have different goals than I do in terms of what you want out of your system and your gaming experience, and that's totally valid. So, what I did originally when I started going through this upgrade process, at IT background, I you know deep dived back into what are the current technology trends for displays. What's the and what are the good deals? What's kind of going on in that world again to sort of like be able to make an educated decision. So I picked up a decent, sub $500 Tom's Hardware, good quality display, an ultra wide because I enjoy playing in ultra wide, and I've been enjoying producing content in ultra wide, and it seemed reasonable to do that, and it looked really good. A couple issues with flicker and stuff like that, and we'll get into that. The name's gonna be up on the screen and whatnot, but since I'm going through this process of looking at a potential upgrade, I figured why not think outside the box a little bit and check out, a good monitor, like a 4K monitor, like the Neo G8, just to compare. Maybe I will move away from ultra wide content, get back into that 16:9 format that YouTube currently seems to favor because they don't allow you to do end cards, for example, for ultra wide. And a couple other like trivial annoyances like that they just don't support. So put that aside for a minute. So I did. I went out, I picked up the Neo G8, and then I played with it some. I played through portions of most of the games that I'm currently playing at this time. Well, a picture being worth 1,000 words, I decided I'm just going to put a couple pictures up here on the screen, and then let's just talk about those for a minute. And I have a few other pictures to show you. And I might as well lead with a conclusion. I'm going to stick with my ultra wide. I liked the Neo G8. It looked really good, but because of the other pieces of my technology that I have, so I've got an RTX 3070, a Ryzen 5 5600X, 32 gigs of RAM. I've got two M.2 drives. One of them is really fast. My setup isn't a slouchy setup. I've got two displays running already, and my traditional setup is having an ultra wide as my main monitor, and then having, a regular like a 1080p side monitor for my, to monitor my video, keep any reference notes up that I have and stuff like that. But for my main capture device, I want to enjoy the game while I'm recording for you. And because I think that probably makes it a little bit more authentic. If I'm not having a good time, you're going to see that, right? So behind me here, I've got two screenshots. One is from my ultra wide that's on the right. This is actually from a recording that I put up one of the videos I did on YouTube. And on the left, I have basically the same location done in 4K. Now, the 4K version, let me get myself out of the way here for a minute. Now, the 4K version, there it is in 100%. I took it and zoomed it all the way out. Basically, I increased the viewport so that it would mimic the ultra wide on the right here. So if I put them side by side, you would kind of see like the point that's on the tent on the left. I got them both in frame. Now, it's odd to me. Again, this they're both fully on the screen now. If I click back and forth, it's odd to me though that if you look on the left, the tent is almost in frame for both of them, and if you look on the right, the building is actually a little bit more in frame on my ultra-wide display than on the 4K display. And I found that to be odd on one hand because 4K is supposed to be just more pixels overall, so it seems like maybe it's something with Enshrouded in particular that it doesn't really give you a 4K viewing experience. I don't really know. It's odd that the ultra-wide actually had a wider view than the 4K. The other thing is in this game and in most of the other games that I played, in order to get them to work with the 4K monitor, because of all the extra drawing that it has to do to fill out those pixels, in order to accomplish that, I had to turn the settings down to keep my frames per second up enough to provide a stable recording. So to that extent, let me zoom into 100% here. This is on the 4K video. You should be able to see the distinction between the trees here. Let me get this up to 100% as well. Actually, let me zoom in even more. So the 4K footage, again, getting myself out of the way here, the 4K footage is on the left. So, and the regular ultra-wide 2.5K, if you will, footage is on the right. The details on the tree look better on the right, obviously, and that's probably because I could run a higher texture set. I could, run with more of the behind the things set to balanced as opposed to set to performance. Even looking at the paneling on the side of the building, look at the edging. I could zoom in farther. I don't want to distort things by zooming in. These are both at 100% right now in terms of picture size. So sort of like the full size display they would have been. This I'd have to drag around. You get the idea. But even looking at the roof tiles or the side of the wall, because I had to turn the settings down on the 4K in order to get it to render at more than 20-some frames per second, I can't have a good experience on that monitor and also record it, which means that for me, wanting to enjoy the game and record for you guys, it doesn't work. Now, this is a newer game. There's probably some things that are not optimized. But even going back to an old game, this is 3 screenshots of Shogun 2. Now, on the far left, I took off the chunk of the screen because I wanted to show the part that matters, and that is the size of the map and the size of the menu down in the lower right-hand corner of each image. So the far left is pure 4K, and I got to tell you, I can't read the imagery at all, and the map obviously in the upper right-hand corner is kind of small. So the middle image, I scale it down to 85% or 77%, somewhere around in there. And that got it to be a more reasonable size, more legible for, someone who's looking at it. And not just me, but also someone like a viewer watching my video kind of going how much rice does he have? How much koku and stuff like that. And then on the right, I've got a clip from it being at 50% resolution, basically 1440p, and now the year is more visible, the map is more visible, the names of the provinces are more legible, there is less screen real estate. I didn't have to worry about a frames per second experience on Shogun 2. It pretty much played okay regardless of those settings. Now, this is an older game. It doesn't really scale the UI at all. It just keeps shrinking the larger you have the resolution set to. So in order to have an enjoyable experience playing Shogun 2, for example, and I've seen some people complain about some of the Total War games and then maybe not scaling as well, quite so well either, I have to turn it down to 1440p. So at that point, I'm not really using the 4K monitor as a 4K monitor. I'm using it as a 2K monitor. Side annoyance to that, because the 4K monitor, the recommended scaling for the screen itself in order for text and everything, because that's set to 150%, if you have a second display where the scaling is at 100%, when you go to launch a game, So Shogun 2 in this case, if I say I'm going to play it in just 1440p instead of 4K, it'll blow some of the desktop from your 4K display. Since it just shrunk the resolution, it'll shove some of that over onto your side monitor, shove that content off the screen. It makes it a mess, makes it an annoyance. And now, I guess if I had two 4K monitors, maybe that wouldn't be an issue, but that's not what I want to do. I don't want to run around playing hardware whack-a-mole to try to support a monitor that I'm not even sure that I really want to be recording in 4K or playing all my games outside of Ultrawide. In fact, and I, for example, jumped into Fallout 76, not an amazing demanding game, but can be a pretty demanding game, and fired it up in 4K, looking at the details on the barrel, looking at the details of the world, tweaking the settings to try to get it to play well, looking at the details on my jump jet and stuff like that. So after I played for a bit in 4K and got it to be a pretty enjoyable experience, although not without its issues, not without a little bit of its graphical hiccups and whatnot, I took that memory, the visuals of the barrel details, the jump jet details, all that stuff like that, and switched back over to my ultra-wide monitor, fired up Fallout 76, and I breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief, because being able to go from that feeling of what to me now is a squished format back to the ultra-wide experience, I don't know, it just felt better. So, again, it's a subjective thing. You may enjoy playing in a 16:9 format. I've decided that for me personally, I just can't get behind switching to a 4K monitor at this point. The rest of the hardware that I have just doesn't support it. And the level that I have to turn down my settings in game to get the 4K to function smoothly basically causes me to lose either the quality that I see, in, for example, like going back to Enshrouded, or even in 76, or it's negligible, like in 76. And in 76, once when I switched back and was looking at my backpack and gun and stuff like that, I couldn't really tell the difference. And at the point that I can't tell the difference between the settings I have that play good on my ultra wide and the settings that I have that play good on the 4K, while there may be some future proofing in getting the 4K, I also don't really like the 16:9 format. I'm too used to playing in an ultra wide format. It's just more enjoyable. And I guess I'm just going to leave it at that. So thanks for watching. I hope this was interesting to you. It's a bit of a divergence from what I do, but and by the way, I'm not done testing. I do have an ultra-wide IPS panel coming that I'm going to be testing out to compare against the VA panel that I am currently now using. If you have any questions or feedback or advice, I'm always appreciative of it. Comment sections down below. If you want me to do an addendum where I talk about the VA versus the IPS panel, again, you can drop that down below as well. If this helped you out at all, don't forget to hit that like button down below, because that helps me out. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing for my actual game content or for future tech videos if I decide to get, roll a little bit more of that into my stuff. So take care. See you later.